That's the only logic. The only logic for NIP missing out is, well, it's NIP. But that is infallible logic.
Welcome to Overtime on Inferno, your weekly roundup of all the big stories in CSGO in less time than it took Pain to get some extra salt in their veins. A quick reminder to remember to rate and review us at the end of the episode. It really helps us. I am Logan. This is ISSA. Let's get into it. We didn't think we were going to have a lot to talk about today, but little did we know that like an hour before we started doing anything that ISSA was benched from OG.
Yeah, I mean, that's huge news. I mean, it's something that's... It feels like it's been going to happen for a long time, right? Like everyone's felt like ISSA's going to be leaving OG. Thorin certainly has. I think it's finally come to fruition. OG have been super underwhelming for a little while. If you haven't really followed them, they've not really won any events. They've generally struggled to stay around the top 10. It's mainly been about a 15th place team for most of their existence. At the moment, they're really struggling. So we've felt that changes are going to come. They replaced MBK, with NiKo, the Danish one, not the Bosnian one.
Is that official yet? Or is he still standing right now?
I think he's still a stand-in, but it's kind of like an open secret, I think.
Yeah.
It seems that way. And then that just leaves one spot. Now with ISSA leaving, ISSA has had obvious problems inside the server in terms of his fragging, but a lot of that comes, especially at the moment, a lot of that comes because his ping is higher. He's been unable to get into Europe to improve that ping at the moment because of visa issues. It's not been a great situation for him. That said, even pre-corona, he was a little bit underwhelming as a rifler, as a player. I've always liked ISSA. I thought he was fantastic on Hellraisers. I've always liked him. But he has not been the Hellraisers ISSA on OG. And yeah, he is left today, as we're recording this. Tomorrow, as you're hearing it, probably, hopefully. So I don't know where OG go from here, but I will say it's easier to find a star player to improve your team than it was to find somebody to replace MBK, I think. It's just, can you afford to buy one?
Yeah. So the first couple of names of just random people that, like big people that are not on a contract currently. So Kenny S is there. I don't think they'll pick him up because they've already got a good opper in Man2. It wouldn't make sense to me. So a certain Danish entry fragger is definitely available. Which they could go either way on that. And you've got the Valde connection with there as well. I've seen shit talking about OG Rops. I don't think that's going to happen, but you never know.
I think Rops would cost too much. And I think he's too similar to Valde. Maybe not. Maybe he's not too similar. Maybe they do sort of play. You could put them on opposite ends of the map and have Valde as the sort of more passive rifler and Rops as a lurk. But they're both quite passive. Neither of them are insanely aggressive on the T side, certainly. So I think that might be a little bit strange, especially as ISSA was generally an entry type player.
Yeah, this would have been the team that Twist would have fit really well on if he didn't go to FaZe Clan. I think this.
That's true. Yeah, I think Twist would have been fantastic here. It's a shame for them that JKS went to Complexity because he's a player that, in terms of numbers, would fit. Maybe not in terms of role. However, having said that, he hasn't really set the world alight on Complexity either.
Yeah, I know we're going to talk about Nivera later, but Nivera might be a good fit. Just as kind of a flexi player that has played well on a tier 1 team recently, and he wouldn't be that expensive either.
Flexible, however, I'm not convinced he's a superstar, which is really what OG need. If I'm OG, I'm probably looking towards a tier 2, somebody who is a star in the tier 2 or tier 3. Somebody like.
A few moments later.
I don't have one to hand. I'm trying to think of who. There was a player I was thinking of. I mean, we just saw Ents pick up Spinks. Somebody of that sort of level is sort of what I mean.
There's another Israeli player who was on.
There's Flames.
it's
Flames
not
is
Flames.
really good.
There's another one, but Flames. Who's he playing for right now?
Flames, last I heard, was on Endpoint. That's somebody who I would consider. He's an incredibly talented player who's looked really good in the tier 2 scene. He's used to being a star player, so it's not like a complete role change. And he's going to be cheaper than buying a recognized star with a potential upside. I think you're really going to struggle to buy a player who is the level that you need, who isn't a massive gamble. So I would take the gamble and say, maybe this doesn't work out. Maybe we find the next best player in the world and we become one of the best teams in the world. That's how I would look at it. There's also NiKo Odos, Copenhagen Flames. It's another player who sort of come out of nowhere, looks fantastic.
I just had a thought about Finland. And so I know the Havu team that's actually doing really well right now has both X7 and Ariel on it. Both of the players who are doing really well right now, specifically X7. Actually, no, Ariel's doing really well too. I've got the stats page pulled up. They're between the two of them, they're averaging like 1.2 ratings, right? Either one of them might be good if Alexi B still has good relationships with either of them. I know he broke a lot of. I know the whole leaving Ents thing had some drama around it, but you don't know how that actually affected between Alexi B and the rest of the team as comparative to just Alexi and Aloe.
I think Ariel cut some, burned some bridges, especially. I think X7 maybe, but I don't think X7 is X7 would have made more sense as the MBK replacement, I think, than the ISSA one. Ariel stylistically would work, but as I say, I think he burned some bridges with Alexi. I can't see those two teaming up anytime soon. I'll put it that way.
All right. So what have we learned from this conversation? We have no clue who OG's going to pick up.
Absolutely none. But being an international team who needs a star player is a really exciting position to be in. It's really exciting for all of us that OG are an international team with money who need a star player, because the scope is huge for the level of player they could bring in. Yep. I mean, they could make me happy and bring AZ in. They could get an entirely new, they could pick up a Flames and get an entirely new fan base that we've not really seen at the top level of CS before. A player who looks really exciting in the tier 2 scene, and see if he can make the step up. They could go
pick up Mobs MD.
They could pick up Mal. I mean, they need an entry fragger, right? That guy rails heads off.
He's the doctor of Counter-Strike. That's all it is.
Malves is insane. I mean, I genuinely would try and sign him if I was the GM of a top 30 team. I would try and sign him. I think he's amazing. There's so much scope for the level of player they could pick up. They could pick up an American player.
I mean, the American player that I would say they could pick up, that they would pick up, is oSee, but that doesn't fit the team on the way that it works.
Absolutely smurfs in the NA scene. It is obscene.
Oh my god, it's so good. We're gonna talk about oSee later.
We are.
But oSee would be a good player to be on that team. He's the best player in North America right now that's not on Liquid or EG, right?
Oh,
I think we can say that comfortably, right? The issue is he's an Opera and they have Mantu already, and I don't think Mantu is the person to move on from, because Mantu has been playing well in OG. So there's no reason to bring in another Opera in that point.
The other option I would say from America, and it's a bit of a low key one, is Cynic on Triumph. I think he's really good. I don't know if you've watched much of Triumph. Sheikh Zula he's a genius. I don't know how he keeps
Sheikh
finding
Zula
these
is actually a genius. Sheikh Zula is a genius. And I really wanted to get onto a better team so he can IGL a better team, because he has the biggest brain known to humankind, I think.
He is the one-man savior of NA Counter-Strike, Sheikh Zula, because he will keep finding these unpolished gems and polish them. Cynic is really good. He is genuinely somebody I would consider if I was, looking to make a gamble on a player who I think could make the step up. I think he's fantastic. However, your issue there is that there's rumors of EG and Liquid players even going to Valorant sometimes.
Yeah, but
he might be holding out for a move like that.
For some context there, those are Naf and Tarek tweeting gifs of Valorant, and the at least Tarek on his own is a huge troll on that kind of stuff, so I don't put a huge amount of rumors into that. And Naf's just kind of Naf, so like I don't put a huge amount into that either.
I don't think Tarek was entirely trolling.
I don't think he was entirely trolling, but I don't think he was entirely being truthful.
That's probably fair. I think Tarek has probably considered switching game.
I'm sure that every single North American player has considered switching it.
I think he was more serious than you imagine. Regardless, the scope for the level of player and the type of player OG can sign is absolutely huge, and that is the most exciting for all of us because it could be almost anyone. They could go the complete opposite route and like pick up Flusher, and you'd still kind of be like, I can see that working.
I could totally see
it'd be
working.
insane, but there's so much scope for the level of player they can pick up, and that's so exciting. But it also means I have absolutely no idea who it's going to be.
All right, I have an idea. Let's switch gears a little bit about ISSA. I have an idea of where I want him to go. And this is the stupidest idea I've ever had, but I want him and Woxic to team up with the old Space Soldiers lineup that's playing for Sangl right now. And I want that to be the team because they won't have ping issues with each other because they're all in the same general area.
Calyx is available again as well. Although I think Calyx and Woxic not get on? I think that's a thing. I think the reason Woxic never joined Space Soldiers back in the day was because he didn't get on with one or two of the players, and I have a feeling it was Calyx.
I mean, Calyx isn't playing for them anymore. It's Major, Paz, Engine, Logic Man, and Emor.
I would be very surprised if Woxic decided to join that team. I'm sure he believes that he's better than that, and he probably isn't wrong.
I'm sure he does, and I'm sure he's right, but that gives him pinging less ping issues. There's English somewhere there, I promise.
I actually think ISSA might go to the US if he can sort out his visa. From what I gather, he's a very animated guy. He's loud, he's emotional. And I think that type of person tends to do well in the NA scene because it is a bit more, the comms are a bit more loud and aggressive, and it's a bit more brash. And I actually think he would fit in quite well. He then could go and do what oSee's doing and absolutely destroy the tier 2 NA scene, get back some of that confidence and that level of play that we know ISSA has, because he showed it time and time again on Hellraisers how good he can be. I actually think he might end up maybe going to one of the NA teams. However, it's trying to find a spot for him on one of those teams because at the moment they don't exist. I can't see him going to Cloud9, who are the team everyone always talks about. Oh, is he going to Cloud9? I can't see that happening. Maybe he joins the Flusher team that doesn't yet exist. I have no idea. Where ISSA goes is almost as difficult to suggest as who OG are going to sign.
Yeah, because he really can go anywhere as long as he can go to the place. Like his options are limited to his ping, I think.
Yes, and his visa, which seems to be a constant thorn in his side, sadly.
Well, I feel like
really
those two things are connected with each other.
Yeah, well, quite.
All right. Let's move on to the post plant where we talk about the rest of the news from this week that doesn't have to do with ISSA getting benched from OG.
Bomb has been planted.
Navera was officially stepped down to a non-active status, which is the legal terminology in which Vitality used, from Vitality from their 6-man position to go back to a 5-man team. Vitality went on to say something along the lines of this, they really wanted the 6-man, they liked the 6-man, they want the 6-man to continue to work, but because of Valve's new rules regarding 6-men and losing points and not being able to use 6-men during the major, basically was a pain in their ass, and they were like, we'd rather practice with the 6 people and not have to screw over Nivera and the rest of his Counter-Strike career, which all good on Vitality there. Respect for you to give the guy his life back.
Yeah, is the 6-man experiment just not working? It seems like Astralis did it and everyone followed because they thought, well, Astralis are doing it, so it must be good. And then Astralis just like, don't use the 6th man, only did it because Glaive wanted to take a break and Zipnix was taking a break. And then everyone seemed to just follow it like, oh, Astralis are doing it. They're the best team in the world. Everything they do must be right. And then the two teams who were doing it best, one of them doesn't use their 6th man, and the other one's dropped their 6th man. So
Yeah.
is it a bust? It feels like a bust to me.
I feel like part of the reason it's a bust is because of the Valve major rule change that happened. I think if Vitality if it didn't screw them over in the major and in RMR events, they would continue to use Nivera. I think they've had a lot of success in using Nivera. They expanded their map pool using Nivera. I think there's a lot of good stuff that came from the 6-man on Vitality, and we can see how it works really, really well. But we also have seen how it's been iffy on some other stuff. I'm thinking kind of towards Navi's Inferno with Bit instead of Flamey. How sometimes that's very hit or miss depending on how well Bit is playing in a given day.
That one, Navi one, really feels like them trying to see how good the player is without having to cut somebody first. I think if Bit was successful and was really successful, they wouldn't even think about it. They just cut Flamey and put Bit in immediately. I don't think it's, oh, we're experimenting with a 6-man roster. I think it's, we're trying out Bit, but we don't want to let Flamey know he's being cut yet.
All right.
I honestly think, I don't think any team who uses a 6-man roster, other than Vitality, who are the most good faith in doing it, and even then, it's clear that one of the, as soon as this changes, oh well, I guess we can't do it. By Nivera, you are only a stand-in anyway.
I mean, Nivera had to know from the beginning that he was the 6th man. It wasn't like he was going to take a slot on the team. I mean, he was very good, and all of us will continue to say that. And he deserves to be on a good team at this point. He's definitely proven his worth. But, like, he was definitely the 6th man on the team.
But what is the end goal? You see somebody like Nivera, who a lot of the time was the second best player on Vitality when he played.
Yeah.
And then as soon as the going gets tough, it's like, oh yeah, no, get rid of Nivera, keep Apex, keep RPK, keep Misuta.
I mean, I understand the keeping Apex.
Wasn't Nivera better than Nivera was better than Misuta? Am I mad?
No, I'd 100% agree with that.
I think Nivera looked like the better player.
Even though Nivera replaced Shocks on most maps, it wasn't even Masuda.
Yeah, I'm fine. And I think he looked better than Shocks a lot of the time as well. I don't understand why Nivera is the one who leaves. Maybe I'm missing something. Maybe it's a role thing. Maybe they think he's only good at the few maps he played, and then they can just live on without him and just put Shocks back in and it'll be fine. But also the fact that they've now experimented with the 6-man roster means Shocks hasn't played Dust 2 for about 6 months. So when it comes to the major, he hasn't really played much of this map. He hasn't played as much of the map as everyone else. So you've put yourself at deficit now.
It's not only experimented; they succeeded on that. So there was no reason for them for Shocks to practice Dust 2 with them. Like that. That's the best. That's the best explanation. I think actually the better explanation is Inferno. But there's no reason for Shocks to have practiced Inferno because Nivera was playing the map. Nivera was doing great on the map. There's no reason for him to touch it. Now he's got to come back to it cold because they were having such success with it.
He's got to come back to it cold, and he's got to come back, and he has to do. He now has full scrim time, so he's back working more than he was before on maps that he hasn't played for a few months, and now it's maybe part of it was because they wanted some of their players to rest a bit more. Maybe Shocks was getting burnt out, so they gave him a little bit less scrim time, a little bit less stage time to sort of ease that. And now it's just like, oh yeah, no, we're back now. You're playing every game. You're scrimming every game. I mean, we saw Apex take a break for a week and then come back, which was very weird. I don't know why they didn't just say he was being subbed out as the 6th man, because that's essentially what happened. He was subbed out for a week. It all seems a little bit strange to me. I don't think the 6-man rosters are... I don't think any of them are really working that well. Vitality was the best one, and they've given up on it because of the major. So I don't know why other teams... I mean, Sprout picked one up today, and it's like... read the room, man. Nobody else is doing this anymore.
They're just trying to follow. They're just a little late. All right, let's talk about Sphinx again. We talked about him a little bit on the top on our quick Israeli player finder. So after 3 days of play in Group B for ESL Pro League, Sphinx has gone off. Ents has looked like actually a decent team.
Is it supposed to be said Sphinx or Sphinx? I don't know if it's just like a pronunciation thing.
Well, I totally typed it wrong in the show notes. It should be SPINX.
Yeah,
So
I didn't know
Sphinx.
if it was meant to be said
Yep.
Sphinx or something. I
No,
don't know.
I'm
Either
really
way,
good at spelling.
he has been insane. He dropped, like, he had 2 massive maps against G2, 1 massive map against NIP. Okay, they got blown out on the other 2, but that was a team-wide issue as well. I mean, one of them was 16-2. You can't really blame him for not doing well in that game. And in essentially every map they've won, he's been their best player. He's looked like he's looked like their best player, and easily a replacement for Yampi, obviously, who left to Lego CSGO. What a weird team this is, though. You look at it and it's like,
weird.
How is this team good? I'm so confused. I do not know what to think about Ents. I have absolutely no idea.
I don't think anyone knows what to think about Ents. I think that's probably the reason why they're winning a little bit more than we think they should, is because nobody knows what to think about this team. Because nobody knows anything about this team.
How good is Sphinx that this team is winning games? Like,
okay, he was
how
plus
good is he?
18 against G2. He was plus 18 with almost 100 ADR. For reference, NiKo had a plus 9 in that game, and he only had an 80 ADR. That's across 3 maps, Train Mirage and Nuke. He had a 1.42 rating against G2.
I don't really think I'd even looked at who was on Ents until like just before we went live. And I've looked at it again, and I still don't understand how this is a team that's winning games. How is a team with Alu, Snappy, Dotto, Diha, and Sphinx like beating G2 comfortably? How is it going to 3 maps with Mouseport?
The worst part is you become more confused when you start looking at the roster.
Yeah, I thought I was like, oh, maybe Ents are actually pretty good. You know, they got a young up and coming. They got Snappy and Alu and Diha. He's been around for a while. Dotto, who kind of looks like a younger version of Natu. He looks like a younger version of Natu.
He does. Yeah.
Okay, Diha's much younger than I thought, but it's still like it's not a team of young players that's come out of nowhere. These are mostly established players, and then Sphinx just like absolutely just going mental. And they're just beating good teams, and I have no idea how this team is good. But then I had no idea how the old Ents was good either. They're just sort of massive underdogs all the time, and they're really good at it.
Speaking of players that we're surprised about their age, Snappy is 30 years old.
Yeah, I knew that one. I knew Snappy was old. I said old. I mean, he's 5 years old. He's not that old, but
all right, let's talk about Extra Salt, because Jesus Christ, Extra Salt. They didn't drop a single map in winning DreamHack Open. They had the quote unquote easier path because they didn't have to play Liquid, but like, who cares? Because they didn't drop a map, and oSee just literally b-hopped on everyone.
Yeah, oSee was just like MVP of the tournament by a mile. The only player who even came close was Safe on Pain, and that was mainly because he absolutely ditched Liquid on Dust 2.
oSee is just
oh my god.
oSee is the NA MVP. It doesn't matter what team you're on, nothing. It does not tournaments. He's just the MVP. I'm actually kind of upset that he didn't. I think he was offered by Cloud9 to take that Cloud9 thing, and how much better would Cloud9 be right now if they had oSee on that team?
It's difficult. I mean, they'd definitely be better now. Obviously, they wanted Woxic, so oSee wouldn't have been AWPing, which is probably why, or part of the reason why oSee turned them down. I think DreamHack Open was strange. Liquid were playing with Fallen on 150 ping, which is a mitigating factor as to the reason they lost. But they did get absolutely dominated by Safe on Dust 2, who is a really odd player to watch, because you know that meme of like is it just me or is Guardian a bit of a boring player?
Yeah.
Safe is just that. He's like kind of boring. He doesn't seem to do that much, and then you just look up and he's got 40 kills. You're like, how's he done that?
When did this happen? It's like a quiet 40.
Yeah, he gets a quiet 25 kills every map. He's really good. I think Bigu Zera is really, really. He's one of the best players I've seen come out of Brazil in a little while. I think Bigu Zera is terrific. And I really wanted Pain to win the final, and I really don't think they deserve to lose 3-0. They played very well on every map, and each one it was like 16-12, 16-13, 16-14, or something similar to that. And they looked really good on every map, and they really did push Extra Salt. It is worrying for Liquid to lose to them, although they can always point to Fallen's ping. Elige still looked like an absolute gamer for the whole tournament. He was
Johnny Jabs,
destroying people.
I think Elige. I think somebody tweeted along the lines or made a Reddit post or something about like, yeah, no, Fallen was on ping and they weren't playing well because Fallen was on high ping, and Elige just responded to that with like, no, we played like shit. Like, there's a point in which I'm worried about them, like at quote unquote Liquid as a team, and then there's a point where it's just like, yeah, no, they played shit. They understand they played shit. Get them next time. Like you see it every once in a while. To me, it's not a worrying factor yet.
I think that's fake modesty on Elige's part, though. There's no way that Fallen's ping didn't affect.
Oh,
them
it definitely
badly.
affected them, but it doesn't affect you to lose a 2-1 against like a team like Pain to that degree.
I mean, does
like,
a disservice to Pain, though.
I agree it does a disservice to Pain, but Liquid's also the number 4 team in the world right now for decently good reason. They've looked really good when they've been in the same place together. They've been playing very well recently. Like, if you're going to say that 1 week we're going to have a clusterfuck of a game, this is the kind of week to have it.
Oh, absolutely. I'm not necessarily saying I'm worried about them. I just think that Elige's taking blame for something that isn't his fault. They got pounded by the enemy AWPer on Dust 2. Fallen is notoriously good at AWP versus AWP. Like, he will study the opposition AWPer and he will kill the opposition AWPer. He doesn't really care about killing riflers. He just wants to kill the opposition AWPer with an AWP duel. When somebody like Safe is going off, Fallen is the player you want to shut that down, and he just can't duel him because his ping's too high. It was a real problem for them. And I think Elige saying, oh, we can't blame the ping. It's just him being sort of modest. It was definitely a big reason they lost the game. Maybe the biggest reason. But it is doing a disservice to Pain to say. I think it's like unfair to Pain to say, oh, we just didn't play well. Pain are a good team. They are a really decent team. I quite enjoyed watching them. And I think they deserve to win that game. But it would be a very different game if Fallen was playing. And I think it would be unfair to Pain to say, oh, no, Liquid were just playing badly. I think it would have been a really fun game to watch if Fallen was on normal ping, because it would have been pretty close, I think, rather than a bit of a blowout on Dust 2.
All right. I can see that one. All right, and let's now move to Overtime, which is our new segment. Well, it's our old segment, but it's just been reconditioned now to take some questions from you guys who listen to us, and we're going to answer them really quickly. Our first question from Oladin on Discord is, what's our predictions for the rest of the ESL Pro League groups? I've included a screenshot here for your perusal on what the groups are, because I didn't remember the groups. Let's start with Group B, which is G2, NiP, Vitality, ENCE, FaZe, and Mouse Sports. I think we can say that G2 and Vitality will probably be top 2 in this group, maybe?
I think NiP might finish top 2. Vitality, I don't trust Vitality at the moment. I definitely don't trust G2. But then I don't trust ENCE because I don't even know how they're winning games.
We've talked about NiP a trillion times on the.
That's the problem.
We can never question them.
I can't, in good faith, say NiP are going to qualify because I don't really believe it.
Yeah,
but at the same rate, I kind of do. I think NiP are going to win the group. That's it. I'm putting my foot down. NiP are going to win the group.
There's only 5 games. Mouse Sports has already lost 3. They're not going to make it. We can say that with certainty. FaZe probably not going to make it. G2, NiP, Vitality, Ents are all 2-1 with 2 games left to play.
And one of those teams misses
And
out.
one of those teams misses out.
I have to say it's Ents. I can't see any other. I can't see Ents somehow getting out. Like that would mean one of G2, NIP, or Vitality doesn't qualify. Maybe there's a world where G2 completely shit the bed. I could see that. I could actually see any of them missing out, but it seems a lot less likely than Ents missing out.
There is a real timeline in which you and I can definitely see that NIP misses out because it's NIP. That's
the only logic. The only logic for NIP missing out is, well, it's NIP, but that is infallible logic. Because
I was going to say, when has that logic ever proved us wrong? It's words to live by on this show. All right, let's look into Group C really quickly. Na'Vi, Furia, Gambit, Cloud9, Team 1, MIBR. This is a tough group.
It's a very difficult group to call. I think the obvious answer right is Na'Vi, Furia, Gambit go through. The more interesting question is how many games do Cloud9 win?
No, I think the more interesting answer is how many games did Team 1 lose?
0.
I mean, I'm not sure that that's the wrong answer, to be honest.
I think... Okay, so the actual question is, which of these teams does Na'Vi just somehow lose games to? Because it's going at Na'Vi always they're never perfect. They're going to lose to somebody.
Oh, they're going to lose to MIBR, and this could be MIBR's one win in the group. That's definitely how it's going to work.
I could definitely see that. I could also see them losing to Cloud9 and Cloud9 losing every other game.
Yeah, I can see that too.
I think the Gambit are like the most obvious team to finish top, I feel like, because Na'Vi are almost certainly going to lose to somebody, but I don't actually see Gambit losing to anyone other than Na'Vi.
All right, my personal opinion on getting out of this group, it's Gambit first, Na'Vi second, Team 1 third. But I could be very wrong.
I think it's Furia third. I have a lot of faith in Junior. I think Junior's really good.
Yeah, but I've got a lot of faith in Malbs MD, man.
I have a lot of faith in Malbs, but his teammates are just not as good as the rest of Furia. I think Malbs is stuck in ELO Hell. They could.
Furia can have an off day and just... Yeah, there should be a team called ELO Hell from NA, and it's just Malbs and oSee and like a couple other people.
And Cynic.
Yep, there we go. And Sheikh Zula.
Sheikh Zula's not in ELO Hell. He's kind of...
Yeah, but he's the de facto IGL.
He's underwhelming in the server. He's goated out of it.
He's the de facto IGL of the ELO Hell. Termin is coach. That works too.
That's probably fair.
All right, let's talk about Group D, which is the theoretical group of death. How this goes, I have zero clue. It's Astralis, Liquid, Virtus Pro, Evil Geniuses, Fnatic, and Endpoint. This is scary. I think Fnatic and Endpoint don't make this, but I think
Fnatic are finishing bottom.
I think Endpoint's going to take a map.
I think Endpoint will beat Fnatic.
I don't know who they'll beat, but I think Endpoint's going to beat somebody. And knowing Liquid, they're going to lose to an Endpoint.
Liquid, I'm not convinced about. I'm assuming Fallen will be back with the team for this.
I believe they'll be in Europe.
He'll be in Europe. So
my guess is he's not leaving Europe because he knew he would have to come right back, and the visa stuff and that kind of stuff.
I believe he was in Brazil, but I could be wrong.
I think he's still in Europe, but
I think Fnatic will finish bottom of this group. I think Endpoint will finish. I think they'll finish fourth with potentially Liquid or EG below them. I think Virtus Pro will probably win this group. Virtus Pro look unstoppable at the moment. Even to Astralis.
I think G will probably be that fifth team.
It is with Obo, so that's what's
well. That's my stipulation on this. Is I have no clue the amount of practice they've gotten in. I have no clue how much of an immediate impact Obo makes on the team comparatively to Ethan's prior impact. I have no clue about any of that, so it's a big question mark for me right now. But based on my thoughts, which hopefully that's what I'd normally base things on, but based on my thoughts, EG finishes fifth in this group.
I can definitely see that happening.
But I don't see that's a bad thing to happen to EG. I'm gonna be honest here, because the three teams above them, like three of the teams above them, will be Astralis, Liquid, and Virtus.pro, which are definitely better teams than them.
Yeah, that's fair. The only thing I can't see not happening. So the only thing I think is definite is that Astralis will get out of this group in the top 3. I can see a world where Liquid or VP don't get through, but I also do think VP will win the group. If you see what I'm saying, they're high variance, but I think their peak right now
low floor, high
is
ceiling,
insane. Yeah.
All right,
I can see them winning the group.
All right, let's move on to the next question. Anemo G on Twitter. Anemo G on Twitter. As you know, I have a history of not being able to read people's names on Twitter. Purely based off a tweet I think I saw you made. If NiKo isn't a top 5 player in the world, who is, and where do we put NiKo in that kind of ranking?
Right. Simple. ZywOo, Rops, Device, and the last player in that top 5.
oSee. It's oSee. There's no...
It's Malbs MD. I honestly think right now, Yukanda is a top 5 player in the world.
I'd agree with that. I think NiKo is 6th looking in.
I think NiKo is like 8th or 9th. I don't know exactly who's ahead of him off the top of my head. Maybe I'd probably put Shiro up there. I think you have to put Shiro up there. Elige is somewhere in that conversation. Some people will put Electronic in there. I think right now NiKo's probably like 7th or 8th. He's almost certainly top 10. I just don't think he's
top 5.
The best. Yeah, I've always thought he was a little bit. He seems to always be on teams that are slightly worse than their skill level, and I don't think it's coincidental. FaZe was the only time he was on a genuine superstar team that was actually good, and even then they had massive problems. Like, they never dominated, they always had issues.
And they choked a major final against a North American team. There's literally nothing worse you could do.
They choked quite a few finals. It was a real talking point at the time. There was the one they lost a best of 5 to Fnatic when Fnatic weren't even that good. When like Flusher got that 2v5 ace that stole a round that he had no right in winning. That was just a thing that FaZe did, and yeah, maybe it was just bad luck, and maybe it's unfair to blame that on NiKo, but I don't think it's coincidental that the teams he's on always seem to have issues and don't quite play to the level that you'd imagine. Whereas I think Rops is genuinely top 5, and I think at the moment you're hard pressed to find anyone better than Yukanda.
I'd like to just state that 3 out of those 5 players are all using 16.9 now, so 16.9 master resolution at this point. Okay, so from Arthur Muller 98 on Twitter, who is the most promising team right now? I think there's a European promising team, and I think there's a North American promising team, and I think the North American one's pretty obvious. I think it's probably Extra Salt.
That's probably fair. I do like Pain. I think Pain are really exciting.
Like Pain. I think Pain is probably a really good team as well, but Extra Salt is just... We said this at the beginning of the show. oSee is smurfing on the NA scene, and in conjunction, Extra Salt is smurfing on the NA scene. There's just... They could go to Europe right now and probably do better than Renegades did when they went to Europe. Which is not difficult, but still.
Yeah, I would still say Pain are the more exciting team from that region, purely because I've seen Extra Salt, I've seen Cloud9 before that. I know what these players do. Pain are a little bit newer. We haven't seen that much of Safe. I mean, he hasn't been playing for that long. I haven't seen that much of Big Uzera and Hardzao. These are players that I'm always excited. I was more excited to watch them than I was to watch Extra Salt, even though Extra Salt won. So I would say them. And when it comes to Europe, most promising team, I think you have to say somebody like... Well, Ents are pretty promising in terms of... Or Havu. Maybe Havu's the correct answer, because they came out of absolutely nowhere almost and like immediately shot to the top of people's like watchers. Like, are these guys actually good? And they're pretty exciting. It's a Finnish team, which is something we don't see often at the top level of Counter-Strike. and they genuinely look decent. Like, they looked really good. So I would say maybe Havu is the most promising team in EU right now.
Not a promising team for me because I'd agree with the Havu thing, but a fun team to watch is Endpoint.
I think
really
Endpoint's
fun
a
to
good
watch.
answer as well.
I think
that's a good
I don't
answer.
think they're like as promising as every other team that we've named. Like Pain, Extra Salt, and Havu could legitimately like fight a lot of the top 10, top 15 teams. I think. I don't think Endpoint can probably do that, but I think Endpoint's a really fun team to watch, and Flames has been doing pretty well on there, and I'm excited to see what they continue with that. All right, our last question: if you could put any skin onto the AK that isn't, if you put any skin that isn't on an AK onto an AK, what skin would it be?
So my answer for this is the AWP paw. I want an AK paw, even though it kind of ruins the anagram because AWP paw same letters. But AK paw, I want little dogs on my AK, and that's great.
Mine's probably a really stupid niche thing, but I want the Mecha Industries on the AK because I've gone by Mechatronic now for years, and which means I think I'm legally obligated to have all of the Mecha Industry skins, at least for anything I use. I don't have the A1S because I'm still on the A4, but like I think that would be really cool. I'm also always on the Neo Noir train, so Neo Noir. But the one really weird skin that I'd love to have on an AK would be the Freehand from the Knives.
Freehand, yeah, that one's pretty cool.
Just an all purple AK with like gray little random hieroglyphics on it. I think that would look really, really sick.
Back in the day when I used to go on like the 1v1 servers and like mess with the weapon skins, I always like there's a Jewel Beretta Marina skin which is just yellow and blue. And I always thought that was actually quite cool. I would kind of like that on an AK as well.
Yeah. I mean, like, here's a skin I really wouldn't like on the AK. I wouldn't like a Dragon Lore AK.
Yeah, the Dragon Lore's kind of ugly. The Medusa's much cooler.
I agree. Thank you. Thank you. Dragon Lore, most overrated skin in the game. Don't even at me. I mean, you can at me on that, whatever, but like, you're just wrong. All right.
Yeah, I think it's pretty ugly.
All right, that's going to be it for this week after our barrage of hot takes. We will see you guys again next week. I don't know what we'll go over next week. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, maybe it would come to us in not in a dream, but in a tweet an hour before we record, like the ISSA News did.
Yeah, I mean, that seems to be what's happening. All right,
maybe it'll come in a dream.
OG, bless us with something an hour before we record again next week. Thank you very much ahead of time. That's gonna be it for this week. We'll see you all next week.
See ya.
Hey guys, it's Logan. Thanks for listening to Overtime on Inferno. We'd greatly appreciate it if you could follow and review us on your favorite podcast player. If you have any feedback at all, please email me at logan@readtldr.gg. We'd love hearing feedback from our listeners.